Hi all, let's have a look at another very exciting game from the Sinquefield Cup. Wesley So was playing against Magnus Carlsen. E4, E5, this is in round 5. And we see, instead of the Royal Pets, the Scotch game. So now we have a very interesting move, Bishop B4 check. This is a disruptive check with the aim of trying to make white use up that C3 square. Which normally it would be nice for a knight to come there. So c3, which avoids the double pawn possibility. And the bishop actually just goes back to e7. By going back to e7, this is the main retreat is actually c5. But on c5, there's some tactical issues sometimes with bishop e3 immediately threatening to take in and win the bishop. And if the bishop has to drop back, this is thought to be maybe a little bit better for white. If you check this technically, queen g4 is quite a sharp idea, with the idea of parking on g3 and punting for knight b5 later, for example like this, where white might actually be getting a small advantage out of the opening. So this retreat actually has got some stuff going for it. It's not such a tactical target as on c5. White takes on c6 now. B takes, bishop d3, d6, castles, knight f6, rook e1, black castles, knight d2, rook e8, knight f3. Now, one feature of the position here, it looks as though with the double pawns, the e5 break might be more effective than usual. So perhaps this is the fundamental strategic plan or break that white should aim for. Knight d7 seems to cover that for the moment, but now knight c5, so this e5 is kind of encouraged potentially. For the moment though, white wants to maintain his light square bishop, so he treats this as a threat here. Also, if e5 anyway, there's d5 here. This seems to be an adequate response in this position, and it's a nice blockade square, e6. So the bishop drops back for the moment. Bishop g4, h3, the bishop goes to h5, bishop e3, threatening to treble black's pawns. The knight drops back, but now some pressure with bishop a4. It looks a bit of a worry, this. c5, and it's here that white lashes out quite forcefully. First he breaks the pin, and that knight is now exerting an influence now on e5, and e5 is played here, and it seems quite a logical moment, you would think, to try and break up black's pawns. There's also kind of pressure on d7 here. It looks quite dangerous. All Magnus Carlsen does though is play rook b8 here, using his kind of trump card, that b file, semi-open b file. Perhaps white should just play b3 just to blunt that b file. Wait a bit. This seems to be a good idea. Say for example bishop e4, bishop f4. This is a small advantage to white. There's pressure. But actually in the game we have bishop f4. And there's a slight danger here inviting a rook to the 7th rank. Quite often the great games of Fischer often feature a rook infiltrating to the 7th rank and winning. It's a prelude to often winning, having a rook aggressive on the 7th rank. Here it's a very, very complex position still, but it has fragmented also the two pawns on the queen side. We've got two pawn islands instantly by not just playing b3. So it's quite a major thing to allow. Rook takes b2. E takes d6 is played, and perhaps it's here that the resourcefulness of black's position is revealed. C takes d6 is not good for black. Bishop takes d6. This position is not good for black because, yeah, the knight's kind of, yeah, skewered to the rook. If knight f8, that is resourceful, attacking the queen to save that situation. But after queen takes c5, white is better in this position. This is pretty tricky. There's a question asked about the e8 rook. This is just tricky. If rook takes, white's quick to get that central file, and will probably is threatening now rook e8. It starts to look a little bit nasty. we can take this a bit further. Maybe black ends up a pawn down, and that's no good. So that would be a totally ideal scenario for white to see. But, you know, after this e takes d6, Magnus actually takes with the bishop, and there's big differences here. Very big differences. The key thing is, black is able to spark a kind of, in my view, a weakness of the last move. For example, if white plays bishop takes d6, black, by being able to play rook takes e1, is encouraging the knight to weaken f2. The knight is currently standing guard here on h4 and is interrupting the f file right now. If the knight has to play knight takes e1, c takes, queen takes, this looks terrible, this pin position, but now queen h4, for example, and this is fine for black. The knight can't be taken because it's like checkmate with queen f1 here. So this is a very interesting difference, this position. And if we have instead rook takes, queen takes, bishop takes, c takes, queen takes, there's still an issue here with the f2 pawn. Even though the knight hasn't moved here, there's still an issue, queen e2, which is okay for black. And you see that the aggressive rook on the 7th, this is unwelcome. So yeah, it seems to be the case here that after bishop takes d6, there's some nuances that have crept in here, which start to question if this rook should have been permitted on the 7th rank. We see white playing actually rook takes e8, playing bishop takes d6, but you know, there's an aggressive rook on the 7th rank here, and in fact this pin situation is similar to what we've seen, that black counterattacks on f2 now. So yeah, the rook is actually playing a vital role here to secure black a good or slight advantage. Queen g3, but with the fragmented pawns, you can argue, well, black's got fragmented pawns as well. Yeah, but still, the key thing is, black's activity is very good here. White has also created some potential weaknesses on the king side from that g4 earlier. We see now the move rook e1. If the rook stayed on a1, we can get the rook imprisoned actually with bishop b1, amusingly. And if bishop b3, which points at a sensitive spot, which is guarded at the moment, but c4 is good, and then we just imprison the rook again. Let's just take this imprisoning scenario, what black would be able to do with this. For example, like this, it starts to get really dangerous. Yeah, so knight f4, yeah, it's yeah, it starts to get quite dangerous. So basically, here we see rook e1, but now rook b1, forcing the pair of rooks off, and it's white's pawns that are under great pressure more than black's pawns here. The queen is more centralized than the white queen. The bishop is already attacking a pawn. We see bishop c6, because actually the critical threat here is also bishop e4. If that's not addressed, this is big trouble. I'll give you an example. If a3, bishop e4 is a big advantage for black. If say, that's just nasty, this pin, g5 might be one of the best moves, with the idea of knight g6 to f4, giving that peg. So for example here, immediately even knight g6. Just as an example, bishop takes f3, ouch, town, ouch, ouch, ouch. So yeah, it seems as though this position after bishop e4 is very, very bad. You know, where does the knight move without allowing this basic checkmate in 2? So yeah, it's white is just in a passive position here. He has to defend bishop e4, which he does. So he plays bishop c6. So black nabs the a2 pawn, the pawn up. Yeah, the rook on the 7th has caused some damage. And we've got now with that, of course, a dangerous outside pass pawn. Queen d6. that pawn on c5 is protected. Knight e5 lunging in. If white doesn't lunge in and perhaps try and go for it, let's see. Well, this outside pass pawn is going to start being more significant. If queen e5, a5, if queen, yeah, we're just going to move the pawn basically, eventually. We're going to start moving the pawn. And it's going to be supported by this bishop to get to a2, protected on a2. That's nasty. So basically white goes for it, this tempo gain here. But this loses another pawn. It's maybe another slight miscalculation, unfortunately. And in fact, white resigns here. All Magnus has done in this game is win a pawn and another pawn. He's 2 pawns up. Let's have a look at this position. The idea might have been bishop d5 to look at f7. And it looks, on the surface, quite dangerous. But black in this position has a good resource, which may have been, you would think our world champion would find it, queen a1 check, which does kind of create a weakness of the last move, basically again, because wherever the king steps here, if king h2, queen d4 is hitting the unprotected pawn on f2, and so for example knight takes f7, we just take that and that's fine. And if, you know, bishop, there's just nothing for white to do that. If king g2, queen d4 pins, and it's, the thing is, it's with check as well potentially, so knight c6 trick is not working because this is bishop takes d5 check. So yeah, queen a1 check is, it seems to be the absolute strongest move in this position by far, to create this kind of, again, this kind of weakness of the last move. If we played, just to show what white might have had in mind, queen d4, there's knight c6, which makes it a little bit tricky, the position. So maybe this was what the hope was. You know, if queen takes, we have knight e7 check, winning the queen. And if bishop takes, remember it's not check now or anything. Well, knight takes d4 here. Well, no, we have to play. What we have to do here, it's tricky. Check, say, and there is pressure on f7. And if we get this position, white's still in the game. It's a small advantage to white, but it's tricky actually. There's a, you know, this dark square weaknesses. So the way to play it would seem to be in this, when the game ended there, after bishop d5, say, which is that I think the only one of the main attacking moves to consider in this position. Yeah, queen a1 check is the strongest response. Okay, so it wasn't like a majorly spectacular game. Let's just go to the final position. It wasn't a majorly spectacular game. It just seems some small miscalculations on the finesses, but in principle, actually, I remember even in one of my own over the board games, sometimes it's, you might think it's okay to allow rook on 7th, but such a risk really requires very, very precise calculation. So that seems to be, it wasn't the case here. So that rook on 7 led to a winning a pawn, then another pawn was won, and with the weaknesses around the king as well, that didn't help. So 2 pawns down, yeah, Wesley So resigns. Hope you got something from that game. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks so much.